Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. It is March 29th, 2018, and this is episode 565, which is not any kind of special episode number. I just thought it's nice to sound. It just sounds nice to say. I'm your host, James Jones, and with me today is Mr. John Lindemann.
James, it is great to be here today with you.
Thank you. Also today, Mr. Greg Leahy.
You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? I just like the sound of it.
No, that's fair. No, you know what?
This town needs an enema.
Oh, I'm not even going anywhere near that. Also, hello, Mr. Guillaume Vayette.
I don't know any quote from that movie. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman.
You're right. You're right. Perfect.
Unfortunately, most of the choice Keaton Batman quotes from Batman Returns, like eat floor, high fiber.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think that got lost in translation when I watched
No.
it in French.
It's lost in translation for the scriptwriter's head.
I don't even know why you can complain about that one, because it's nowhere near the worst one for bad puns.
True. Fair point. Yeah, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fucking masterpiece compared to Batman and
It's
Robin.
not, yeah, but it's not coming out of George Clooney or Val Kilmer, so it just feels...
No, or Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's the
Yeah.
problem. There's an entire website devoted to all the ice puns in that movie.
Come on, guys, chill out.
You know what killed the dinosaurs, John? The Ice Age.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's factually inaccurate. Deeply offended by Mr. Freeze's knowledge of the end of the dinosaur era. But
Zach would be
we're gonna-
offended.
we're gonna, I don't know if that's possible. We're gonna bury our emotional offense. We're just gonna cast it aside for now because it's not material to what we're doing. Instead, we're gonna talk about video games, which is something that we sometimes do on this show. And we're going to start it with new business, where we talk about games we've been playing, pretending like you people have never heard this show before. Guillaume, what have you been up to?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned last episode, I got an early code for the Alliance Alive, so I've been playing it for the past few weeks. I tried to send a coded message. Like, I couldn't talk about the game last week because it was still under embargo, but I said that the demo is very indicative of the final game. And I didn't sound too enthused about the demo, I don't think, so...
I tried to bail you out of going too far, going like, so if you like the demo...
Yeah. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though... okay, so first things first, I have recorded a segment of The Thirsty Mage, which has been released on YouTube, but I'm not sure, like, it's supposed to come out in connectivity at some point, right? I'm not sure exactly how it works, this whole thing, but at some point you're going to hear me on connectivity talking about the game with Casey Gibson and David Lloyd and Neil Runaghan. And Neil and I were the two people on the call who had played Legend of Legacy. And who had, I think we've been some of the, two bigger kind of cheerleaders for the game, or, maybe not cheerleaders, but certainly, like, we wanted to like it, and we enjoyed it to a certain extent, and, despite its flaws. And so, recording The Thirsty Mage, it was, you could tell that no one was really... enjoying it that much. Casey and David were much further along because they had already, I think, both finished the game, and they had run into certain, like, tougher spots. Like, there are difficulty spikes. They both hit a wall, and so they kind of tempered Neil and I's expectations. But I still haven't. I've played maybe the in-game clock says I've played about 7 hours. It feels like I've been playing for longer than that, so I'm not sure what is up. I'm not saying that as a slight necessarily. I think that maybe the clock is a little bit slow or something.
Deaths?
Yeah, I haven't died all that much in this game, so I don't think that's it. I haven't had that kind of setback. And anyway, I haven't hit that kind of difficulty spike yet. But I'm hoping that maybe I can avoid it, because one of the particularities about these RPGs, The Legend of Legacy and The Alliance Alive, is that they don't follow the kind of the usual RPG structure of you get experience points for every battle. Eventually you level up, your stats go up, and so you get stronger, and then you can beat up enemies better, faster and more easily. Your characters do kind of like their stats do increase, but it's a little bit more opaque than it is usually in an RPG, how you're supposed to achieve that. And the game has this whole system of your characters can be on the front line, the middle line, or the back line, and they can be in a attack, guard, or support position. And these positions and also, they can learn abilities, and it's kind of random when they learn them. Like, if you keep using an axe, eventually you're going to learn axe abilities. If you keep using the same axe ability over and over again, you can level it up, but you level it up along the position that your character is in. So if you were in attack position, then that's good. You've been leveling up your attack, your axe move within the attack position, so it's, it makes sense. But sometimes, if you haven't been paying attention to what your character's positions were, and you were in support position all this time, then you might want at some point to switch your character to an attack position, and then you're going to realize, oh, oops, being in an attack position does give me some advantages, like it will increase my attack power by a certain percentage, but I haven't been leveling up that attack for the attack position. So, you kind of, it's weird. It takes some time to wrap your head around, and it's not something necessarily that you might know or that's communicated very well at the beginning of the game. So I think what happened with Casey and David is that they kind of went through the game not really paying attention to their party formation, and that kind of bit them in the ass in the end when they hit a boss that just wiped them out. But if you've been paying attention from the start to your character's positions, hopefully, fingers crossed, there's no such difficulty wall, and it's going to be smooth sailing. And thing is, I haven't hit that wall yet, and I've been kind of enjoying the game more and more as I've been playing it. So my warning from last week doesn't really apply anymore. I think I've, it's fun. I'm having fun. I want to keep playing. So I guess I'll come back in a future week. I'll report back and tell you if indeed the game is bullshit or if it's still enjoyable. That's the best I can do. I'm only apparently 7 hours into 30-hour RPG, so those are the impressions that I can give so far. The other game that I've been playing, I got The End is Nigh, and that's I haven't looked up at all who made this game. It's at least one half of the people who made Super Meat Boy, and it shows, because it's very much that kind of platformer. You've got single screen challenges, and everything that you touch basically can kill you. The End is Nigh is a little bit different in that you're not playing a meat boy without skin who can die, who bleeds a lot on circular blades. Instead, you're some sort of I don't know. The story is weird. You seem to have to be the only survivor of the apocalypse. Everyone else has died. Their souls are hanging around and they taunt you. And you were by yourself playing your favorite video game, and then it gives up on you, and so you're like, well, I gotta go out and maybe try to make a new friend somehow. And so I guess you're going to assemble a new friend. I've picked up I think a body so far, so I'm still missing like the legs and the head at the very least. The style, the graphical style of the game is not really my kind of thing. It's very dark. Mostly like it's all black and with kind of a whitish background, not glaring, but anyway, like it's very bleak looking, and I'm not sure if I'm on the same wavelength as these dudes in terms of humor or in terms of appreciating whatever themes it is that they like to put in their games, because I kind of bounced off all the gore in Super Meat Boy. I bounced off the Binding of Isaac in general, and in this game, like you collect tumors. That's the collectible in the game, and like, okay, well, you sure are edgy. I don't really get it, but all that doesn't really stand in the way between me and my enjoyment of the game. The platforming itself, I think, is better than Super Meat Boy. It's kind of less BS. It's a little bit more fair, in my opinion. In Super Meat Boy, I kind of felt out of control most of the time. Part of that, I think, is because there's a run button, and it's not always clear when you should be holding it down and when you should not. I mean, it's part of the game to figure that kind of stuff. But there were also, kind of other things in the game where, like, your timing was very important. Like these circular blades that I mentioned earlier, like they move around, and I'm not sure if they always reset to the same spot every time that you died, so that just complicated matters even more in terms of figuring out what's the proper timing to get through a particularly hairy spot. In the end of Nigh, I feel like you're more like every death does a better job of teaching you a little bit better how to get through the level, and by trying over and over again, eventually I made it through. And so whereas in Super Meat Boy, I did not always feel like I was learning the level or that I was making more progress than the time before. The End is Nigh has also kind of a neat exploration aspect to it. There are a lot of secrets to find. There are alternate paths. You can find other collectibles and tumors, thankfully. You can find game cartridges. And so these unlock just mostly the same kind of platforming, but with a kind of retro look to them. Like when you're playing those stages, usually you end up collecting coins in those stages, and the look is very much that of a kind of they're trying to fake a CRT TV look. The screen's all kind of warped a little bit curved, and with a fake interlaced look. Anyway, so it's been a more enjoyable game than I thought it would be, and I'm really glad I picked it up.
If you're a fan of Super Meat Boy, would you recommend it?
Well, that's the thing. I'm not a fan of Super Meat Boy, but I mean, I think so. Like, surely Super Meat Boy fans.
Yeah, I mean, anything that Ed McMillan makes is going to sell to Meat Boy fans.
Yeah. There's that, but there's also like I think that you still kind of find the core, the same core gameplay, the same kind of brutal challenge, and you should be able to enjoy this. Yeah. And it just plays very well. You don't have the run button, but you do have the shoulder button is the crouch button, and that's used to do more than crouch. It's also used like if you're moving fast left or right and you're holding it down, then you're gonna automatically hang on the ledge, and that ends up being important for a lot of platforming challenges. And so the shoulder button and the A and B buttons to jump are the only controls in the game. And that's very smart, because it ends up being a highly playable game even on the Switch itself, like portably. Like you might have trouble playing, I don't know, like a Mario game or any other game where the diagonals might mess you up.
Yeah.
on the with a Switch stick or with like the Pro Controller D-pad, which is not ideal for some reason to play 2D games. But this game gets around all of that by mapping the crouch to a button. So it just plays really, really well, and that's also part of why I enjoy it a whole lot. It's that every time I died, usually I could tell, like, okay, yeah, I messed up. It's not the game. I did that, and I can get better. So it's highly recommended. I was not expecting to enjoy it. That's why, again, I took it from the library. But I ended up just getting hooked much more than I thought I would. And the final game that I'm going to talk about, just a brief mention. I got a Tori code from Two Tribes. It's the first Tori game. It's a very different beast from the second one. The Tori 2 has this whole, like, there's only basically 2 buttons, but yet, like, all the puzzles revolve around these 2 commands that you can do. And Tori 2 had, like, this whole interconnected world that was like very impressive, but also maybe a little bit intimidating to navigate. Tori 1 is a much more straightforward puzzle game with like level based, and in this one you have kind of these various gadgets that you can use, and you're usually limited in the number of times that you can use each gadget. So it becomes, I guess maybe I would compare it a little bit to Lemmings, in that, you kind of, like, you have this one level and you have to figure out how to use the tools that they gave you to get through it. Of course, this was like a Game Boy Color game originally. They remade it for Wiiware. Eventually, it made it to Steam and Wii U and other platforms. And once it made it to Steam, like, it got the HD graphics, but it also, they gave the game a rewind button, which is very useful because I think in the Wiiware version, when you got stuck, there was nothing that you could do other than restart completely. So the rewind button here is very much appreciated, because then you don't have to redo absolutely everything that every time that you mess up something. So it's a good version of a really good game, and I think it's only $5 on the eShop. So thumbs up from me.
But we're on the take, so.
Well, yeah, and, well, I don't know. Like, I feel like I had to talk about it because, well, I do like those guys, but also, again, they seem to think that I'm some sort of a tastemaker or some sort of influencer, and I just, I took the code, and I got to make it count somehow, but, I kind of feel bad for them.
If you want Guillaume for the night, send him a port of the Switch code.
He's yours.
I'm very cheap.
Can't advertise that on Craigslist anymore, Guillaume. They've tightened up the rules now. So
that's true.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and go. Well, no, I'm not. I'm gonna partner with Jon on the next game because Jon, why don't you intro what we've been playing?
Sure. We actually took it upon ourselves to get on the high seas and take a crack at Sea of Thieves. So this is the retail version, I guess you could call it, of this game. James and I played it a little bit. How long ago? A couple months ago, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a while back. During the beta, or alpha, or whatever. But, so this is the actual real version of it, which isn't too different from the one that we played, James. I mean, probably there's more quests to it and stuff like that. There's more to do.
There's more NPCs, there's more quests.
Yeah.
Other players are in your instance, and by that I mean you can choose to play with people.
Yeah, or you can be attacked, either or.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was that in the beta. But
yeah, probably the later ones. Yeah.
You can jump in with party members now. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, Jon and I played it together last Friday with Syrenne, all of which was streamed. We've both played it since then, since they, quote, patched it, which patch was they replaced the entire game with a completely different executable.
Yeah.
So you re-downloaded the entire game, and it's definitely a different experience, but most of our time spent was on the first initial release. So I'll try to add some clarity in places where there have been improvements. But in general, I think the experience is largely the same.
Yeah.
But like we saw a lot of bugs when we played it that first time. Achievements weren't popping. The instance wasn't populating with other crews.
Did you get some achievements last night?
I got some achievements today. I didn't get any last night. But like I got like sail the ship for the first time achievement. I'm like, fuck you, I've been playing this game for like 7 hours.
Exactly. Yeah. Because we played that thing for a while. The first time we played.
We did a 4-hour stream the first time we were on.
Yep.
And then I did 2 yesterday, and I did about 1 today.
Yep.
So yeah, like the achievements seem to be working now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. So at a high level, we've both talked about it before, but this more than ever is a sandbox game. Like it's more clear now than it's ever, because when we were playing the beta, it was like, well, maybe all the progression and whatever is just not showing. Like maybe it's not in the beta. But now this is the full release. Like this is a sandbox game.
Yeah.
They've got this thing where they have this term called horizontal progression. I think that's the term they're using for it, where you have all the equipment at the very start of the game. You have all your items, and there's no better items. There's no better ship. There's no better clothing in terms of stats. Everything is cosmetic. Every little thing you get is cosmetic. So the progression doesn't progress you into better skills and stuff. It progresses you into just looking cooler. Mm-hmm. And this could prove a real bummer for some people who wanted to play a game with like a progression system.
Yeah. Now that being said, I think weapon-wise, you start off with a cutlass and a pistol, and you can pick up a blunderbuss, and you can pick up a sniper rifle kind of thing.
Yeah, but they're all there at the beginning.
Correct. Yeah. You just have to find the vendor that has them, and you can pick them up.
Yeah. The one place where there is progression, and we didn't see this when we played on Friday. Mm-hmm. We figured it out last night. So basically, the gameplay hook is you and your crew pick up a quest from one of the 3 quest vendors on one of the islands that has a town on it. So there's a bunch of islands,
and those vendors they represent 3 different factions that you can kind of gain reputation with.
I guess about a fifth of the islands or so have towns on them. The rest are unpopulated but have stuff. And each member of your crew has a quest, and you can kind of fight over which one you want to do first, and you have a vote, or you can just drop one and everybody votes for it. Once you get the quest, once you accept the mission, or voyage is the term this game uses, then you actually get the quest, which is like, maybe it's a picture of an island with an X on it, and you have to go to this big table map sitting on your ship to figure out which island that is. So there's no name. It's just like you zoom around until you find out, is that it? No. Is that it? No. Oh, there it is. Or maybe you get like a name of someone you need to deal with. The game's enemies are skeletons. They're stranded pirates that have become animated skeletons. So maybe you get like, you need to go kill. There was a good one I wanted to. Hold on, let me make sure I get it right, because this is a really good one. Somebody actually tweeted about it, which was, and I quote, Captain Guillaume Le Terrible. So
yeah, I saw that.
Retweeted.
Or they made it in the game. Yeah.
But like it'll say like, oh, they're last seen on this island. So you chart a path for that island, or maybe you get like, hey, I need you to go deliver this thing somewhere.
Yeah, and you go down below decks, and you can check out. There's a big map on the table, and you can find out where the island is, and
right. And then you set your path. And setting your path means basically just put a marker on the island. That doesn't help your orientation any. It just gives you a quick handy when you need to go back there and check stuff.
Yeah. They deliberately give you very little information to go on. So it makes it's interesting because it makes everything a very manual process, and which encourages you to work with your team effectively. This felt like a big team building exercise to me, especially when we played, because everybody has to figure out, like sailing the ship, it can't really all be done by one person. It's much easier if you do it as a team. So, you have to divide up the chores kind of thing. Like give me some more sail so we can go faster. You man the wheel and you steer, and if we get any water down below decks, you go patch something up. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of that. So that's pretty fun. More fun than you would think.
And there's very explicitly on the big ship 4 spots.
Yes.
Somebody needs to watch below deck, and they're watching the map to make sure we're going the right way, because the map actually has your ship on it and what way you're traveling.
Yep.
To make sure you're headed to the right destination. That's why that marking is important, because you can very quickly eyeball and go, yep, we're headed the right way. And they need to watch for taking on water, because anytime your ship takes damage, you got to patch it up and then bucket brigade the water out.
Mm-hmm.
We, on multiple occasions, sank because nobody was watching below deck, and we were slowly filling with water.
Yep.
You need somebody in, especially on the big ship. On the smaller ship, you can sail it on your own because it's built that way. But on the big ship under full sail, you need someone out at the front of the ship telling you when there are rocks in your way, because the person steering cannot see.
Mm-hmm.
All they can see is sails.
Yeah.
And then you need someone kind of running back and forth to do odd jobs, like adjusting the sail and stuff. Because it's not just like how much sail you have; it's how turned into the wind you are.
Mm-hmm.
And as you navigate, that constantly requires modification.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, they didn't need to make this complicated. This was a deliberate decision to force people to do it.
Yeah. And I mean,
you
can do it by yourself, but you're just kind of running around like a chicken with your head cut off all over the ship.
Yeah. I mean, even with the smaller boat that's meant for 2 people, like I can drive it on my own just fine, and I've gotten pretty decent at it.
Yep.
But it's still work.
Yeah.
Doing the 2-person boat with 2 people last night was a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we learned pretty quickly after we sank twice, I think, was that somebody needs to be the person in charge of delegating. Like, there has to be a person whose job it is to say, go do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we just kind of let it happen organically, it was like really, really bad. What's the Overcooked? What is it? The cooking game. I know that the version that came out on Switch is called Overcooked, but it's like a multiple chef cooking game. I can't remember what it's called now.
Yeah, it was our squad was interesting, because certainly between the 3 of us, we are all let's just say
headstrong.
We're very headstrong would be the word. We are more used to giving orders than receiving orders. I would say that much.
Yeah,
I would say all 3 of us are like that. So
there's a moment where I'm trying to guide the boat, and I announce I need someone looking out for what's in front of me. At which point, Syrenne and Jon have both, at the same time, found their way into the crow's nest.
Yes.
Which is in no way, shape, or form helpful for me.
Yes.
Which resulted to me walking away from the wheel so I could make sure to hit a rock, pulling out my flintlock pistol and shooting at them. Which unfortunately does not hurt your crew.
Yes, and James would tell me to do this and do that, and eventually I would passive aggressively just like jump off the boat and start swimming onto an island or something. He'd be like, "Where's Jon?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I'm off doing my thing, man. Thanks, peace, bye."
Yes. So one of Jon's duties as I was driving the boat was, "Hey, Jon, I believe the phrase I used was 'be my eyes.'"
Mm-hmm. But I mean, okay, let me just say, in my defense, you actually can't sink your boat if you run into a rock in the middle of the ocean. It can maybe take damage, but you can fix it. So it wasn't
but like
I was running us off a cliff or something.
No, but I would have rather not needed to fix it.
This is true. I mean, I agree. It's suboptimal. All right?
So
but
Jon being my eyes, but Jon, tell me when we're going to hit something so I can navigate around it. I didn't say the second part of the phrase. I assumed that was implied.
I mean, I was doing stuff. I was walking around. I figured out how to run off the front of the boat and then get back on as it was going by me. I mean, I was trying stuff out. I was exploring. It's a game about exploration. It's what I was doing.
Jon announced, we're about to hit something. Oh, which way do I need to turn? Oh, no, we're about to hit it. And then it's like, oh, thank you, Jon.
It's like the rock came out of nowhere, You
can see for miles.
Never mind the fact that we're in the open ocean. Never mind that.
At some point, I put Jon behind the wheel and made Jon captive, but still gave orders because fuck it.
Yeah, and vomited on me too. Was this
that came later? That came after we figured out how to play the game.
That came later. Yeah, right.
So eventually, we did settle in though. Everybody had a role, and we switched it around every so often, but everybody knew what their role was at any given moment.
Yeah, our biggest sticking point was figuring out what to do with the one quest.
Right. So the quests aren't super clear. And I actually ran one of those. So first off, the Exploration Guild or whatever, or the Merchants Guild quest, the one that we all started with, are fucking trash.
Mm-hmm.
They're all bad. What that quest was asking us to do was go to another island, because I actually ended up running one of them. Go to another island. It was another town. And meet the person running the Merchants Guild there.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to give us whatever thing we needed to get, and then we were going to go get it and bring it somewhere else by a deadline.
Oh, okay.
So one of the ones I had was like, go to this other what's the term they use for towns? It starts with an O. I can't remember what it's called.
Outpost?
But yeah, outpost. Yeah, go to this other outpost and deliver 2 chickens by like the 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, sure, I'll go do that. So I went to the other outpost and talked to the guy. And then he gave me the cage and was like, all right, good luck. So then I had to go find another island with chickens on it, capture those chickens, and then bring it back to him. And then that quest ended.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 guilds, though, one of them is into voodoo and really just wants you to help the spirits of the damned to their eternal rest. So basically, they give you quests to like, hey, this crew has been, this haunted crew has been spotted on these islands. Go take them out. And you might get 2 or 3 different quest locations on different islands you have to go hit. In that case, though, it'll tell you, like, it's on this island, it's on this island. And so you sail over there, you fight a mob, and we did one of those. We fought a mob of skeletons, and after you kill enough, the boss skeleton pops up, and they take more damage. You kill them, and then you collect their skull, which has glowing eyes and stuff. And there's different levels of rarity in skulls, because of course there is.
Mm-hmm.
You collect all the skulls. Once you kill all those boss skeletons, you may get 2 or you may get 3 depending on the quest. The voyage completes, but that doesn't actually get you credit with that guild. What gets you credit with that guild is selling it the items that they collect. So for the Merchant Guild, it's selling them merchant stuff. For that weird voodoo guild, it's selling them those glowing skulls. Mm-hmm. And for the treasure hoarder guilds, it's treasure chests. And you get quests for finding treasure chests, which is often that treasure map I talked about, where it's like, here's an island, figure out which one it is. There are X's on the map, go get them.
Yep.
Or it's just treasure chests you find, or quote, find on someone else's boat.
Yeah, it's important to note that these items, they stay as live items. So you have to pick them up and put them on your boat, and somebody else can hop onto your boat and steal them from you.
Yeah, so today I was sailing with the boat with 3 skulls from one of those, from one quest, and a treasure chest I found in the process.
Yep.
And I was about to get boarded because I was being chased by, because now there are other instances in the game. Mm-hmm. And so this game rewards ingenuity sometimes. And so I was the only person on my boat. It was a 4-person boat chasing me that was fully crewed. I could outsail them, but I had to get to the island. Mm-hmm. And they were guarding the island. And so the 2 choices we had, Syrenne and I ran into a similar problem. One was sail to a different outpost, which is how we handled it yesterday. Today, I didn't have time for that. So my choice was, okay, I went around the opposite side of the island from them and watched to see if they followed. They did. And so I just chucked all the chests off the side of the boat, pointed the boat out to sea, and jumped off myself. And they pursued it.
And so, okay, and you threw the chests into shallow water?
Uh-huh.
Awesome.
And then I just went and picked them up.
That's awesome.
But the boat ran aground in the process, so it was sinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it was going out, which means I will get a new boat once it sinks, because the game will spawn me a new instance of the boat.
Yep.
And then I just carried the treasure back to the treasure, or the treasure dude, and I ranked up my relationship with the gold hoarder.
Mm-hmm. And so meanwhile they ran off chasing your decoy
an
ship.
Empty boat, an empty sinking boat.
That is great.
That's what this game is.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, I said there's no progression in this game. I'm lying a little bit. We didn't find it until yesterday. So those guilds, as you turn stuff into them, you get experience with them and you level up. Once you hit certain thresholds of levels, you can buy essentially upgraded relationship with them. Mm-hmm. So like the first one's at like level 4, the next one's at level 10. So I just got the Treasure Guild second relationship up. And what you get out of those is you get better quests from them. So the first round of quests are all 0 gold. They're shit quests. They're boring. Mm-hmm. They're pretty boring.
Yeah, they're more to like kind of teach you how to play the game, sort of.
Yeah, they're how to play that style of mission.
Yep.
The second ones are a little bit better. So like the treasure one was a little bit fun. I assume the third ones are going to be even more complicated. But I mean, you also find quests in bottles. And so Jon and I and Syrenne found treasure chest or treasure map. Why don't you tell them what happened on our voyage to the multi-treasure island?
The voyage on the multi-treasure island? Okay, so well, first off, we went to the wrong island. That was the first thing.
Yes.
So we get there, and it was an island that looked similar. We were looking for two particular large rocks with a lake in the middle, or a little, not really a lake, but just like a small little pond in the middle. And we went to one that looked similar to that, but it wasn't quite it, and we figured that out only after getting there.
And tried digging stuff up. It's
Yep.
Nothing here.
Yep. And so, but we did have a beat on what the actual island is, so we did go over there and we found that one. And then what happened to Syrenne? What happened to her?
So the exact scenario is at some point, I don't remember who was guiding the boat at that point, but we hit a rock and we weren't tracking it. Oh no, that was when one of those islands was guarded by NPCs shooting cannons at us.
Right.
And so we took on water. Right. We didn't realize we were taking on water.
Yep. And so we're going past this island and we think we're totally fine. Little do we know that below decks we're actually sinking. And so we spontaneously, pretty much in open water, just sunk. At which point, when you're paddling around in open water, fortunately we were close enough to where we were trying to get to, so we just swam to the island where all the chests were.
Normally you're dead by sharks.
Yeah, you're either dead by sharks or you'll find a mermaid that can warp you back to a ship or a safe area.
Right.
But we were able to. And I think Syrenne, what did she wind up doing? Did she die?
She was under deck because she was trying to stop the flooding.
Right.
And if you're under deck when it sinks, you're done.
Yeah.
Or you're done, depending on if you're playing Xenoblade or not. And so you and I made it to the island.
Yep.
And like good pirates, we started digging up our treasure, and that one had a ton of chests on it.
Yeah, it did. It had like 5 or 6 of them.
But there's a problem now.
We don't have any way to take them anywhere.
No, we're stuck.
Yeah, and it warps you all the way back. If you die, you get warped. It's kind of sometimes.
It picks a random outpost.
Yeah, that's the thing. The key is there. If you have a ship, you will warp back to your ship when you die. However,
we use that later.
Yes, we lost our ship, so it warped Syrenne way back to the starting island, which was literally at the very other side, the south side of the map, which is really far away from us. So
she had to sail a 4-person boat on her own.
Yep.
To come get us.
And
so we basically dicked around the island for 10 minutes.
Yeah, and it was so funny because I remember I was standing there on a rock and I just see this little speck of a ship way, way off on the horizon. And I sat there and just watched it for like 10 minutes and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it was so funny. I don't know. It was just like I was just sitting there waiting, like, just like, yep, just chilling. Waiting for a ship to come by.
I'm like trying to get attention and then guide her towards the side where all the treasure is.
Yeah,
Like, that's what this game is, though. Like, that wasn't in and of itself. We played that mission exceptionally poorly.
Yeah, we did, but it was fun
succeeded.
Though. Like, yeah, I mean, it's just like it's that kind of like cooperation. The fact that you can't, and it's kind of like I think about when I first played this game. I said, I don't really know where this game is going, but I could see it being really fun playing with friends. And that was pretty much dead on. Because with friends, it's a riot.
We had a mission where we had to fight a mob, and we fucking sucked at combat at that point. I've gotten better at it since then, but we were terrible.
Yeah.
And it was spawning a ton of skeletons. Well, we knew what island it was on, and we trudged around that island for fucking ever.
Yeah.
And we could not find the mob. And then Jon just kind of stumbled into it.
Yeah. And I got killed almost instantly.
He got murked.
Yeah, because all of a sudden it's like, six mobs like come up in front of me. I'm like, oh crap.
And we weren't anywhere near our boat. The boat was way on the other side of the island, and it didn't regard him as still having a boat.
Yeah.
Because he was really far from it.
Yep.
And so, because the mermaid had popped, basically. And so Jon is back at the outpost, or actually no, it's on Shipwreck Island, which isn't an outpost, just a place you get warped to sometimes. And he's trying to guide me towards it. And eventually I figured out where it was, and I fight him for a while, and eventually I buy it, and then Syrenne buys it. And then we're all sitting on the same island now. I'm like, well, we got to go back. We sail back over there. And I think you got murked again.
Yeah. Yeah, but then you had the money idea, though.
Yeah. So I put the boat right next to, there's like a little gap on the island, a little channel. I drove that boat right into the channel, slammed the anchor down, and we just fucking shelled that mob.
Yeah, you had to kill a ton of them to get the bosses to spawn, though.
So somebody would go onto the island and run around to get the mob's attention and drag them in front of the cannons. And then they would just eat cannon. And the thing is, like, if that person died, the boat was right there. Yeah. And they just respawned on the boat. Yeah. And we did that for like 10 minutes. Yep. And we eventually got all those stupid skulls and took them back and got like 5 levels.
Yeah, and I mean, we were there so long, we were like, are we even doing this right? Like, are we just wasting our time? You know, we had no idea, but then all of a sudden we're like, oh my god, the bosses spawned, yes! And then we just said, and those guys, they were tough too. They were tough to beat.
Yeah, I think I was on the back side of the island trying to round up skeletons, and I was just going, uh-oh. Yeah. And then it was bad news for me for a little bit. But this game is so much about like, hey, I've got a good idea, let me try this.
Yeah, because there's really nothing stopping you from doing it.
Yeah, like you can fire yourself out of a cannon.
They don't guide you, but they don't like stop you from doing anything either.
No, because when you start a game, you basically start a game in the exact same place every time. Like, if it's your first time or your 30th time, you may have different stuff, but you're starting on a randomly assigned outpost. You may have some quests from last time you launched the game, but you're not on a boat or anything. You just go to your boat and start doing business. The only thing that carries over is your money, your gear, and your ranking with the other guilds. Yep. But, like, so John alluded to some of the goofier shit in this game. So you can put yourself in a cannon and fire yourself. Allegedly, according to the achievements, you can use this to board other ships. We just tried to get out of world with it for a little while, although I don't think we succeeded.
I mean, because you could, how many cannons are on the side of a ship? I mean, you could have 3 people hop in cannons and all just like board it. Like just launch yourself onto another ship. That'd be great.
Yeah. You can fire yourself, though. I found that out later. You don't need someone else to fire you. But there's also grog in this game, and tankards, and your starting gear are multiple instruments, a spyglass, a shovel, and a tankard. And if you drink it, your game gets all wobbly. If you drink 2, you get all wobbly. And if you drink 3, you become uncontrollable and lilt around the game, and then eventually just start puking. And if you get puked on, your vision turns all green, and then you start puking.
Do you really start puking?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You can be locked in prison by a vote by your team in a little brig under the deck. Yep. Just to see what would happen, we voted everybody into the brig, and the game decided John was the lucky winner.
Yeah, I was the lucky winner. So I was in there for a minute or two, and then James decided to go and get a little bit tipsy, and eventually, and so I am literally a captive audience for his drunkenness, and he pretty much sat there and repeatedly projectile vomited over me while I'm in the brig, and this went on for about 5 or 10 minutes. And
you're leaving out the part where you're firing a shotgun at me.
I was, by that time I had switched to a blunderbuss, and I was firing it at James while he puked all over me, which was pretty hysterical.
Like that was like the funniest moment of the game. We were doing absolutely nothing.
It was so stupid. Like I'm just like, okay, like. All right, you're going to sit here and seriously puke all over me repeatedly.
To be fair, because when you get that drunk in the game, you can't control yourself.
Yeah,
like,
it's hard to walk.
Like, you saw me come down the stairs. I basically just fell. Yep. Like, and so I'm just, like, flailing around the room because I'm just completely destroyed drunk. Yeah. Oh, it's so dumb.
It is. It's really dumb. It's dumb. That's for sure.
It's amazing how this game can, like, wind you from, like, hey guys, let's go do something fun together, to like, I will shoot the powder keg if you don't fucking get back on the steering wheel.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of trolling that you can do, but none of it is too mean-spirited, so.
Yeah, but like there's also this weird experiment on human nature sometimes. Like, you need to fucking get under control, sir. We have work to do.
Yes, like you can cooperate or not cooperate, whatever you want to do.
And there's all kinds of shades in between where it's like they're kind of cooperating, but John just walked off the front of the boat by accident.
Yeah, like there's like, okay, I'll cooperate, I'll fix the sails, but I'm also going to do something that is actually some sort of silent protest.
The highlight for that was I've got you on the front of the boat telling me where to go, and then all of a sudden you hear, oops, I fell off the boat.
Yeah, well, I was kind of being funny. I'm like, haha, hey, look, I'm standing out here because they have like the long, like the pointy kind of like
the nose,
whatever,
yeah,
the nose of the boat. You can walk out on it, and I'm like, haha, look at me, I'm on the nose of the boat. Not trying to fall off, but then I actually did fall off.
Meanwhile, I'm screaming, you were going to fall off this boat.
And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to fall off. And then I did actually fall off, and I'm like, holy crap, because, we're out in the way. We're in the middle of the ocean. If the boat goes on without you, you're stuck. You're just in the middle of the ocean. And so I had to actually, I had to kind of perfect getting back on, and then I figured out that I could do that, and so I just started repeatedly hopping off the nose of the boat and swimming back and grabbing on to the side of the boat and coming back up.
Jumping over the person on the wheel while Syrenne's asking you to stop.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? All of this is happening while I'm being asked to actually do proper stuff on the boat. So, yeah. And there's a lot of times where someone was on the wheel, like where Syrenne would be manning the wheel, and she wouldn't know where I was, and I would just leap over her from behind and scare the crap out of her, and she'd be like, "Oh, God, Jon again." Being an idiot.
For me, the moment was she's downstairs trying to find the right route. Mm-hmm. I'm on the wheel. You're trying to be my eyes. And I've gotten really incredibly frustrated with you. I've gotten off the wheel, walked up to the front of the boat, just pulled out a gun and pointed at the back of your head.
Yeah. And you're like,
she
hey.
She comes up and she's like, yeah, this is what I expected. Just went back down below deck.
Yeah. Yeah. In this game, things go pretty much as you would expect.
But
yeah,
the game itself isn't great. In terms of content and stuff.
Yeah, there's not much content there, really.
But it's fun only with the right... I feel like you could have 4 friends in this game and it not be fun, too.
Mm-hmm.
If you take it way too seriously, I feel like this game could get really... But if you also don't take it seriously at all, it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
Because we definitely had some runs where, nobody was taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And it was just oh, look, we're in the storm again. Oh, and also there's pirates.
Yeah, you don't get much done. Now, did you guys ever run into any of the skull forts and try to attack any of those?
Yes. So, near as I can figure, that's an indication of here be PvP.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because we sailed into one, and that was the little battle I was telling you about, where we were on a 2-person ship, they were on a 4, and they had already kitted out their ship. So these people actually play the game a lot. Because the prices in this game are outrageous for stuff. And so we're not going to win. A 2-person ship has 1 cannon on each side of the ship, and they have 2. And that means they have 1 person who's watching to patch the bottom of the ship, 1 person firing, and 1 person steering. And somebody just doing the sails and stuff. They actually were stationary in the skull fort, right on the outside. We just did laps around the skull fort and fired at them every time they came into range. And we kept that going for a while. I got some real nice hits in, too. But that meant somebody had to be on the wheel. And then I was doing laps between repairing the boat and firing the gun. The problem is we took too much damage on 1 round, and I didn't get under the deck fast enough to repair it. And then we sank. But I don't know what would have happened if we got on the island that had the big skull over it. They obviously were intent on us not getting there, so I assume there's something there. But things like hitting below the waterline and knocking someone off the cannon. I was aiming for their cannon on the first shot and then putting all my other shots under the waterline to try to sink their boat. But with 4 people, the odds of me doing that weren't high. But yeah, there's some stuff here, and getting the right 4 people together who can be high functioning but also idiots, is probably the combo you want. A high-functioning idiot is probably the best outcome for this game.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to note?
Not really, but this game it's deceivingly fun, I would say.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's I would like to see them add some more content. But I think we all agreed coming away from it that what they have in place right now, the basic stuff, is really fun, and I think we're all really curious to see what they do with it in the future.
It being on Game Pass, which it was right from launch, is interesting because we were using our Game Pass trial. But I could totally see signing up for Game Pass, playing this for a month, canceling your Game Pass, and then when a next big content load drops,
exactly
re-upping on Game Pass.
Yeah, it's
the
perfect.
Problem is
because I would not have paid $60 for this game, but as part of Game Pass, I have no problem playing it.
The problem is that with that strategy is that with prices of games, especially on like the Xbox, going to free fall so fast.
Yeah.
That Sea of Thieves may end up being $15 on its own at some point in the nearest future. So there's other stuff in Game Pass, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to contrast Game Pass with PS Now, it actually downloads the stuff to your game, to your system.
Yeah.
Which on the Xbox is a crisis all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the fridge cleaning of 2018.
Yeah.
So it's but Sea of Thieves nice and small, 9.9 gig. I will say, John, if you haven't gotten in since the patch,
I did get the latest patch. I got the
it looks a lot better now.
Oh, really?
Visually, like colors and stuff pop more.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah. One word of advice is this is full crossplay with PC, and apparently aim mods and shit have already started coming out on the PC.
Oh God. Okay, great.
So I don't think we ran into any of those, but apparently there's a mod out there that causes you to always headshot.
Oh, how lame.
Yeah, so that's gonna suck.
PC gaming for you folks.
There you go. All right, I'm gonna try to move us along quickly. I have a review game that I've been playing. Have
you settled in the pronunciation?
So I've been playing Atelier Lydie Suellel. Is that what I'm gonna go with? It's hard to tell because the game's not dubbed and they used made up words for their name. So and they used made up words Japanese people can't pronounce. So they often just say Sue when they're pronouncing the second name. Lydie, fine, I get that one, but a lot of times they'll just say Sue. So we'll just stick with that. The only Atelier game on Switch. Let's go with that. This came out Tuesday, I think, and so I've had it for about a week and a half now. I've talked about Atelier games on the show before. I have this as a review copy. I was nowhere near ready to review it because they gave it to us like 5 days before it came out, and it's gigantic. But what the Atelier games are, because it's been a while since I talked about one. Basically, they're these kinds of like, I mean, I'll be honest, they're these kind of bargain RPGs. Like they're not super high production value. Out of Gust, which is a Koei Tecmo studio. And they are essentially based around harvesting materials from these small areas you can explore, and then taking them back to the atelier to combine through alchemy into making items. And the idea is that you find your materials out in the wild, and each item you find has unique stats within the parameters of that specific material. So if you want to find certain items, you need to go to certain places, and then each one you pick will be different in some way than others. So maybe it's got higher quality. It's like a higher quality version of this random type of grass. Maybe it's got different attributes. So what it can contribute to the final product, like skills and upgrades and buffs and stuff, is different. Maybe it contributes more to the little color stacking minigame you have to do when you do your alchemy to try to boost the stats of it. So trying to get as many of each color on there and get other stats that way. It's basically you take all these materials that you've harvested from these small, like, JRPG style areas, and you collect them back to the atelier, and you get recipes as you go, and you make things, and you try to make the best version of things you can. So be that the material that's used to craft weapons and armor, or potions for using in battle, or bombs to use as attack weapons, and all kinds of stuff like that. And trying to essentially make money by selling things and completing quests and equipping yourself with items that you have made to better go into combat in those dungeons that you're using to harvest stuff. And I say dungeon, it's a loose term. A lot of times it's like a forest or a beach. Sometimes it is more of a traditional, like, oh, here's the lava cave or something like that. The crafting of items and collecting of materials is a neat hook. And it's kind of what the series has going for it, because it is a hook that can eat up a tremendous amount of time, because you have a fixed capacity of how much stuff you can bring back. And so you can swap stuff out, but you don't want to do that. You want to just bring it back afterwards and dump it at the atelier and then go back out and get more. And then once you've harvested a lot of stuff, maybe you get told, hey, I've got a new recipe to make something because I've got all the ingredients now, because you get recipes when you have all the items to make it. Or maybe you just go in there and say, hey, can I make something I haven't been able to make before? So it's been sitting in my list of items I know about, but I can't make it. Or can I make a better version? And then when I make the better version, is this something that I'm going to want to have later just like this? If so, I'll go to the shop where I can register it and then have one cloned for me. And then it's that loop of I'm going to make these items for exploring, and then I'm going to go back out in the field and explore, and then I'm going to get better items, and that loop can kind of cycle over itself. Like it's 10 minutes out in the field, 10 minutes back making stuff, 10 minutes out in the field, 10 minutes back making stuff. And that loop can kind of spiral for a while. It's a great kind of like, this is my second screen kind of activity. So I was watching the NCAA tournament and I had that game going for a ton of hours because I don't have to pay it that much attention. I can play it in handheld mode and I can just go. I mentioned this game's not very expensive. I don't mean how much it costs to buy. I mean in terms of what they make. Gust cranks these freaking things out. I mean, they crank them out. I think there's 4 of them on the PS3. Like, they just put these things out. And part of the way they do that is the production values aren't very high. Textures, the characters are, I would say, over-designed. Like, they're gaudy. But they look nice. The game world is under-designed. So the textures are kind of flat. The polygons are pretty basic. The art's kind of eh. The lighting sometimes is goofy. Sometimes it looks like the game is completely turned the contrast all the way down, so it's just brightness, or the luminosity all the way up, depending on your perspective. The enemies are kind of goofy looking, and they don't look very high detailed. And even how things animate, it looks kind of bad. The characters' 2 animations for walk and run are a trot, and the run is that trot slightly sped up, but not really that sped up. So to the point you're actually moving faster than the stride. It's not great. And this game is some moe trash. If you don't know what moe is, you definitely do not want to play this game. If you do know what it is, you probably don't want to play this game because it goes all the way in there. It is some anime-ass anime. And like in the most like...
So you're saying it's made for me, James?
Yeah, exactly. It's all the tropes. It's all the tropes together, all the heroes assembled, and it's just, you know, I'm sitting there going like, oh, God, they're talking again. But sometimes I'll have a laugh at it because the game knows what it is, and sometimes it leans in, and then they'll kind of throw a character on the outside. You know, this is sort of what Xenoblade did, where they put a character on the outside of the trope, going like, I can't fucking believe this shit. Except there's no consistent Nia on the outside going like, fucking hell, why are we doing this? Everybody is the trope monster. It's just everybody gets their turn on the outside going like, this is stupid, what are we doing? Which in a way doesn't absolve the game, but it amuses me occasionally. Largely, I just kind of blast through the text because again, not dubbed. Deal with the story because a lot of times that gets me things I need to make. But in general, I just kind of roll through the text and kind of read it and go, yeah. Because I just want to get back to that loop of explore, collect, make. And then explore, collect, make until the point where I've got really, really good stuff. The combat system is kind of interesting. It takes a long time to get going because if you have 3 characters in your party, that's the whole party. And you don't get to avail yourself of all the neat stuff, and the battles are just slow, like hit, next turn, hit, because it's got the active bar where it's like where everybody's turn is, and people move down different amounts depending on what they did and their speed. And MP in this game is so important that you can't really use your skills very much. When you start adding people to the party, though, you get this 2-tiered party where there's 3 people on the field, and each person has someone behind them who's not on the field. That person is healing and collecting MP every turn, and you can swap them at any point. So once it's a character's turn, you can swap them for the person who's behind them, and then they start healing and gaining MP. Also, characters who are on the second row, it's not really a row, they're not even in the battlefield, but who are waiting to join the battle, will sometimes act after the person they're behind does something. So, for example, one of those characters, 2 of them, and they're stacked behind each other, so one behind the other. If one of them does magic, the other one does magic in response to the same target. which has gone from making the battles these slow grinds to being much faster affairs because I'm stacking effects and getting to stack skills on top of other skills to clear out the enemies a lot quicker. That also means I don't have to worry about MP as much because when somebody's low, I just swap the person in the front for the person in the back. The person that was in the front and now in the back is healing and regaining MP. The person who's now in the front has full everything because they've been in the back, and I can just keep rolling. It's made the boss battles a lot easier too because I don't have to worry about trying to heal people. I just swap them, and then they heal and I swap them back. So there's a lot of mechanics in this game that work, and that's kind of why I've played. This is the third game in the series I've played. But it's not as good as the PS3 game I talked about. It's not as produced. It's not as polished. And the fact that this one's not even dubbed, like whatever, I can do a subtitled game. So that doesn't really bother me that much. But it just feels cheap. And because this is like the worst anime voice acting ever, like all the stereotype voice acting stuff, it's really grating after a while. I'm just hammering through it to not hear it. Because it's like the squeaky girl voice, and that's half the characters. I just like the gameplay of this game. Like all the knocks I have against it. This is going to be a tough review because I'll pour time into it just doing the loop. Just doing the collect the resources, make stuff. And then I'll get to the story and I'll be like, that was dumb. That was so dumb. Like, I appreciate what you're doing here. And then I'll get to the side story stuff and go, I don't want to hear any of this. This is awful. So, yeah, it's weird. It's a weird game to play. In portable mode, it plays just fine, except it's like got Vaseline over the camera. There's a nice blur effect going on. There's a little bit of slowdown sometimes. It's like I said, if you know what you're going into the series, this is fine. Like this is a good entry. If you're not sure, I might say wait for a sale. It's a little bit. This is a extreme your mileage may vary game. Like I'm having fun with it, but there's definitely stuff about this game I'm like, wow, that's bad. That's not. I'm just overlooking it. I'm not overlooking it. I'm just able to get past it. One other thing to note to give you an idea what the quality of this game is. Clock. This, Xenoblade 2 had the problem where sometimes it would count your time when you had it in sleep mode. And Greg, I know you experienced this seemingly more than I did.
Yeah, it was there, but it didn't seem constant, and
yeah.
So even then this is in a time before like any updates would have changed anything.
What if I told you there's a game that does it every single time it's in sleep mode?
Well, at least it's reliable, consistent in that.
What I have deduced is I think it's using the Switch's clock to figure out how long you've played, as if it's on a system that doesn't have sleep modes. However, it came out for PS4 and Switch. System exclusively coming out for systems that have sleep modes. The final experiment is going to be if I change the time on the Switch. Does the time jump on my save? I bet it will. So right now I'm up to about 150 hours of gameplay time.
Oh, God.
I'm going to go ahead and say that's not accurate because I've only had the game for 150 hours. And I'm pretty sure I slept at some point. It's probably closer to 15 or 20, but I would say of that about 65% or more, it's the secondary thing I'm doing. It's the backup to the basketball game on TV or watching a video or something like that. It's sort of the second screen, not the primary screen. When it is the primary screen, even then there's usually something on my laptop going on because a lot of this is just running the loop. And I like the loop. I think the crafting mechanics of this game are some of the best I've seen in a game because it's so active. The quality is not just the materials you collect, it's how you deploy them. How you solve the weird little color Tetris puzzle when you put them all together to get the optimal effect, how you experiment and manipulate, and how you make one item so you can use it to like in a very specific way so you can pass an attribute onto another item. Like there's a lot there that works really well, but it's wrapped in this package that is going to turn off so many people that I don't even know what to say here. But I'm glad I'm playing it. It's definitely got issues. It's been the perfect game for where I'm at right now with what's going on, like what's on TV and stuff, and the fact that, I've watched like 30 basketball games in the last 3 weeks. It's been great for that. If this was my primary game and it was the only thing I was doing, I think I would be way, way more bored with it. But it is good for pick up and play because, like I said, the loop's only about 10 minutes. So if I have like 10 minutes between things, errands or something, I'll pull it out and just knock out one of the rounds of the loop and then save and advance my time 6 hours and then come back to it later. Greg.
Yes, so this week I kind of been looking at this for quite a while, but it's just a question of timing and whatnot, but I finally got the Axiom Verge Multiverse Edition for the Switch. Apparently it's still happening for Wii U, believe it or not. I think it's getting closer, the retail release for Wii U. Obviously, it was on the eShop for Wii U a long time ago. It was my favourite game of that year when it came out on Wii U. So I'm not going to dwell on the game itself here. Needless to say, I still like it. I played through it on hard this time from the start. It didn't really seem that different, but it's been a little while since I played it the first time, so it's not the best for a direct comparison in that way. But in terms of the Multiverse Edition, it's not hugely more expensive than the standard retail physical copy of Axiom Verge. You just get a sort of extra box and a little art book and poster and a making of kind of Blu-ray is really the most significant kind of additional content that's offered by it. And with the Switch version, there's a soundtrack CD because they kind of wanted to make up for the fact that it was inevitably going to be more expensive than the PS4 version for cartridge reasons. So it's a nice little bonus, although of course you can get the soundtrack in plenty of different ways, including on vinyl, I understand.
Yeah, vinyl hip with the kids now.
Yeah. But with the Blu-ray, it's very much is the kind of the special features kind of thing that you'd be familiar with from DVDs and Blu-ray. For films, you've got a sort of a half an hour kind of documentary about the making of the game. You've then kind of got as a companion to that the kind of just seemingly almost raw footage of their conversation with the game's creator Thomas Happ that's kind of fed into that documentary. So it's pretty wide ranging. You're talking about his early life and working through all his influences and his career as a developer in the games industry before he goes solo and making the game and all that kind of stuff. And then also there's a sort of playthrough with himself, Happ again, himself and Dan Edelman, who came on to work with him on Axiom Verge eventually after his time at Nintendo had come to an end. He was involved a lot in the Wiiware platform that we've been sending off for so many months now. But, so that playthrough kind of thing, that's more like the kind of director's commentary kind of component of the special features from a film, because they are played through the game and obviously commenting on specific things that are happening, although inevitably, and again this is something that you'd be familiar with if you ever have delved into special features on films and whatnot, there's overlap with all these things, certain points are covered multiple times and all that kind of thing. But I found it interesting, in terms of talking about his career and the methodology of how he made the game and all this kind of stuff. There's some footage in there of a kind of a ROM hack kind of thing he did on GBA that you're using sort of zero mission looking graphics with this pre-rendered character. There's funny to see the sort of lineage of his kind of independent works, but until he managed to spend, I think he quoted 5 years making the game. I'm sure this is the kind of thing that I have read about online to some extent already, but definitely a big component of it is talking about his personal life, things that went on. Like his child developed a very serious illness right around the time that the game first came out, and so this Multiverse Edition is kind of in part dedicated to his small child. who I think it's like 75% of the game's revenues are supposedly are going to from the Badland, the publishing label attached to this physical version, and then to a sort of trust for the healthcare costs and all that kind of thing for his child. So that's something that I kind of wanted anyway, the game, because I as I said, like it a great deal. I'm not so hung up on having a cartridge of it, to be honest. I think I would have been okay if it had just been a box full of like this other stuff and a download code, which I know is something that people hate very often when that happens, like the Sonic Mania one.
Right.
But for me, that would have been fine. Like having the game digitally and the convenience of that, but then having these other kind of like trinkets and artwork and whatnot, that you have some kind of physical representation of this game that I like very much in your possession is a decent combination as far as I'm concerned. But certainly the Multiverse Edition packaging is a lot nicer than, the standard box is okay, I guess, but it also looks like the kind of thing that you'd come up with as a placeholder, just a sort of cropped screenshot from the game with the title put on top of it. But whereas you got like original artwork for the actual different box that the Multiverse comes in, that's a lot nicer, a lot more sort of specific. But the fact that there's this kind of charitable angle to it as well, kind of it definitely kind of made me feel even better about the purchase. But I've enjoyed the playthrough again. It's certainly. There were advantages on Wii U in terms of the dual screen kind of aspect. You could have the map there on the gamepad while you was playing on the TV and manage some things, on there in terms of inventory and whatnot. But the big advantage that this has, other than the obvious of just the pure portability, was the off-TV play of Wii U was convenient. I used it a lot. It was nice, but Axiom Verge is a very particularly terrible colour palette for the off-TV play because it couldn't handle reds very well.
Oh,
the colour bleed that happened, especially on red, with the streaming display that the Wii U gamepad used. And this is so much red. There's it does change as you go through the areas, as you'd imagine. Plenty of that spooky purple that Guillaume noted in A Whole New World and whatnot.
Right.
But red is consistently used as a sort of accent colour, and kind of highlighting certain things, and so gamepad couldn't really do that looking as sharp as it should have done. Here, on the Switch screen, obviously talk about higher resolution. Color reproduction is obviously much better. It just looks super crisp. I love the way it looks in portable mode. It's certainly a big in terms of fidelity. It's subtle, I guess, in some ways, but I feel quite significant improvement. And the full portability on top of that, I think I'll probably play it a fair bit more and maybe get at least closer to 100% of the items, because I don't think I got that close when I played it the first time on Wii U, really, and I didn't go back to it that much, even though I kind of thought I would, but I just didn't.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on you mentioned having this physical version with where you would actually probably have been quite happy with the code and how that's been somewhat contentious. Sort of an aside, there's been a run of that happening with these collector's editions that don't actually include the game and are supposed to be on Switch. Like they're literally just the stuff. And I get why you would do that, because there's no Xbox SKU of just the stuff, no game. So retailers don't have to crowd up their shelves with it. I kind of wonder if that would be preferable for people who just want to buy stuff, either to support that cause or because they just like the stuff in it. I don't know. Because I'm of the same boat as you. Like that stuff sounds neat to have. I don't want a physical copy of Axiom Verge. That's one of those games I would definitely want digitally. So I don't know. That's an aside to everything else you said. It just popped into my head, and I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I get the other point of view, which is like, well, hell, if we're going physical, let's go physical, kind of thing.
Right.
Like, let's actually have the damn game physically. I get that, certainly, but for my own purposes, especially with certain kinds of games, and yeah, I would put Axiom Verge in this category. Digital is more convenient, so that I'd be perfectly okay with that.
All right, well, that's going to do it for New Business this week. When we come back, we'll have a little bit of listener mail. Stay tuned. Listener mail time. You can send your emails to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Please do so. I enjoy getting your emails. You can also post stuff at the various message boards in which there are threads relevant to us. I keep an eye out on that stuff too. Just get us your stuff. Tell us what you want to know. Ask us questions. Help us out. Give us content. Put content in our podcast. Again, that's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. We'll start. Guillaume, would you read the first email?
Leo writes, "Dear RFN crew, I love your show, yada yada yada. But I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine, and a Wii U came up. I don't really believe it, but anyway. I told him I hope they port Xenoblade X and Wonderful 101 because I sold my Wii U and I'd like to play them again. To which he replied, I couldn't possibly sell my Wii U. Twilight Princess is too good, I go back and play it too often. After Breath of the Wild, I don't think I can go back to the old 3D Zelda games. They aren't anywhere near as good, and I just have zero desire to ever go back and play any of them. Do you guys agree with me or him? Thanks."
So let me ask it this way. Could you play an old-style Zelda game?
Yeah, quite
Sure.
comfortably.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, define old style.
Well, it was any of them. Could you play a style of Zelda game that we have seen in the past?
I absolutely could. However, the last time I played Skyward Sword, I was like, I'm kind of over this formula.
Okay. When was the last time you played Skyward Sword?
A long time ago. But I'm just
Like
saying,
when-
I never finished Skyward Sword because I was kind of over that formula.
Well, we now have our next retroactive.
Yeah.
You can join John Lindemann as he sees the end of Skyward Sword.
I mean, you could talk about kind of, it's a little bit different to me in terms of the experience, like when you play Zelda for the first time. And, it's okay when you're not necessarily sure how it's going to turn out and what it means for, is the series evolving, where it's going to go in future, to just going back and play it. You know what it is, but you just go back and play it again and kind of just appreciate it for what it is, and and nothing more or less, or no kind of projections or anxiety about it. And there's some things I can imagine going back to play previous 3D Zeldas that might grate even more, than they otherwise would do, based on some of the things that were introduced in Breath of the Wild. But I also think that these are games that I enjoyed back then, and I could see some value in playing them again. And there's some pluses to the stylistic difference for me, particularly because of how much I enjoy the more traditional kind of dungeon style, that was in those games. And it's not something that Breath of the Wild kind of fully kind of substituted for with the sort of trade-offs that it made. I feel like there'd still be a utility in going back to play old Zeldas, or indeed a future game that was a bit more like old Zeldas. But that's one part of the question. Then of course there's the other part of the question, which is just the sort of the Wii U kind of. I thought it was kind of interesting that I sort of agree with his friend. Like, if I was going to pick like why I wouldn't want to put the Wii U completely out of reach, it wouldn't be Twilight Princess HD.
Well, because of the game's name, that's the one most likely to find its way to Switch anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's on GameCube, it's on Wii. and it's very likely to get re-released in some fashion. Whether it's like a virtual console type thing or whether it is a port of Twilight Princess HD or goodness knows what, but it's likely to show up again. In terms of going back to play it, I would first of all probably Wind Waker would take precedent over Twilight Princess.
Same.
Because it not so much that I definitely like Wind Waker way more when I first played it, when I first played each of them, I mean, but especially for replaying Wind Waker and with the changes they made in HD in terms of the Swift Sail, the Triforce quest getting made less bad.
It's a much more bigger. I mean, it's a full remake too, which
it does feel like a more substantial kind of overhaul. But so all of those things, Wind Waker is a pretty enticing game to replay. Mm-hmm. Twilight Princess, the bloat of that kind of creeps in a little bit more. Again, I think it was a game, and Skyward Sword very much is in this category again. It was very much a game that was focused on trying to seem very epic the first time you played it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And some of first of all, that was not entirely successful because you just get this padding that wasn't even that great the first time you played it. But especially years later, you don't really give a shit like how many hours it's going. Arguably, you want it to take less time because you want to see some of these things again, but you don't want it to take up that much of your time away from playing current games or whatever. The fact that Wind Waker was kind of truncated at the time because of the development cycle not being as long as they would have liked, but then also smoothed out with the remake, it's a brisk experience, which is not something you can say about a lot of the 3D Zeldas.
No, I think one of the things that's most telling about Skyward Sword is, John touched on it, he didn't even finish the damn thing. 3 of us were on the podcast when that came out, recording a podcast, and I remember distinctly right after, I think it was the Friday after Thanksgiving we had to record for some reason, and I remember distinctly like this weird sense of everybody's kind of like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it was just really hub worldy and just like
for me, there's some wonderful stuff in Skyward Sword.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the tough part about replaying it is and I have replayed it once, not too long after the first time, but it's been a good while now. We're talking about 6 years or something probably. It is the fact that I'd like to experience some of those moments again, quite a few, but the stuff in between, and that is similar with Twilight Princess too. Wind Waker would be like of Zeldas on Wii U's. Wind Waker would get the title, but there's other games that are kind of more specific to Wii U that I would say are things that I would really like to keep the system around for, as well as the I've got quite a lot of virtual console games on there. Many of those were ones that were not available on previous virtual consoles because they were GBA games or the things like that. So it's
Earthbound and Demon's Crest.
I mean, they have come to new 3DS, but still like
sure.
That's another system that is on its way out.
Yeah, DK64. I know you were very pumped about when that finally came out.
I can tolerate that game.
the point is, for me, it's really if it's me, I wouldn't point to one title. It would be the kind of the library that I've got on there, especially because it was digital, from the get go. You had the fact that you could expand the storage fairly cheaply, so I've got a bunch of stuff saved up there. It's nice to have it easily accessible because it's a whole kind of library. DK Tropical Freeze, Super Mario Maker, all this kind of stuff. The new Super Luigi, there's loads of really good stuff on that. So that I wouldn't pinpoint one title.
No,
but I imagine Leo's friend is just a very great admirer of Twilight Princess, so that's fair enough.
Like the things in the games you just named, though, none of them jump out as like, well, that game's never coming over. And one of them we know is.
No, Tropical Freeze is coming over, but I already have it digitally on that platform.
Yeah.
So.
For you, it's enough. But if you're somebody who's like, oh, sure, I'll just rebuy for the convenience of having this on Switch, which is undeniably a more portable option than the Wii U.
It certainly is, and I've already made use of that myself with games that I really enjoyed on Wii U.
Right. I could see that wanting all this stuff to come over to, quote, finally put it away, especially if in his case of, Twilight Princess is his game of forever. Then, yeah, I could see just like, look, this is the only thing keeping my Wii U hooked up to the TV, taking up a slot. I mean, we talked about it before recording. It takes up two plugs because of the stupid tablet. It takes up a bunch of physical space, again, because the tablet and the console and its power brick. Mm-hmm. And in a world of limited HDMI ports, because everybody's got them, it's taking up a slot. Now, is that a big deal? Not really. But, if you have a small apartment or you don't have a lot of plugs around or, I live in an old house. I have to either have a billion plug strips or rewire every portion of my house I want to put a TV to have more plug sockets. Mm-hmm. Being able to liberate a plug socket is a big fucking deal for me. Getting to liberate two is like Christmas. So it's like, okay.
Being a homeowner sounds so boring.
It is. You have no idea, Guillaume. But you know what? I'm not giving somebody $1,500 a month anymore. They just get to keep.
Here we go.
You know what? I'm an adult, John Lindemann.
Yeah, you're adulting. You're adulting all right. Right now you are.
But the reality situation is that being able to get rid of the Wii U for that person makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, I have to say, if it was me and it was one game that was kind of keeping me holding on, I probably would be of the mind of like, yeah, let's just get that one game over, and then kind of just that's a lot more kind of clean and like you said, I've got a whole bunch of stuff hooked up to my TV, so it's like I've basically been using the Wii U through component because I'm pressed for HDMI because I got to use it through a component splitter, which is not ideal. But good enough, and to be honest, I use it a lot off TV anyway.
Yeah, like I had to buy a splitter at some point, and it's fine. Like the splitter actually knows what system I'm trying to play it on because it just looks at what's getting data, but that's not ideal either.
Yeah, I've got a splitter a long time ago too, but even then I'm still running out of HDMI slots, so if I want to use the Wii U on the TV, I have to unplug the Switch, and that gets old a little bit. I've said recently enough, the thing that's keeping my Wii U hooked up is actually Wii Fit U. And it's still, I still use it daily. But I could see myself just moving the Wii U at some point to another room, and but I don't know. I'm still kind of actively using it for games, like especially because I regret it, but I transferred all my Wii purchases to Wii U, and so I'm still playing Wiiware from time to time. I'm still. And I don't want to necessarily play those, play the Wii on the Wii U screen. That seems especially crappy. I can deal with most Wii U games. Like they usually are built in some way to be able to accommodate that. But the whole, like plugging a Pro controller to a Wii remote and then having to boot it. I don't know. It's
not fun.
It's not fun.
The thing that is interesting though is that the games we've talked about are the ones that I feel like are inevitable. I mean, there have been rumors about the new Super Mario Brothers games, which if they don't want to make one of those things, just putting out a 2-pack, which they already did on Wii U. They already started bundling Super Luigi in.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, to be honest, how those games sell, that's probably a guaranteed million seller. Just being honest.
I mean, I can't say I would buy it. I mean, I know it's usually I don't double dip.
I've never played New Super Luigi U.
Usually.
I've never.
I really like the Luigi DLC. It is a remix, of the game that was already there. The kind of macro structure of the game is the same, but you're talking about levels that are quicker, trickier. I personally have always liked Luigi's kind of slippery but higher jumping physics. So yeah, that was one of the best content expansions they've done today, if you ask me.
Yeah, so I might bite on that if the price was right. Mm-hmm. If it's $60, they can F right off. But if it's $30
maybe,
even 40, I might bite.
Yep.
I mean, it would be 60 because Nintendo, but I'm down for it at some price. I just don't know what that price is. For me, it's Xenoblade Chronicles X is a big one. Yep. And it was mentioned. The other one for me, which wasn't mentioned, is Tokyo Mirage Sessions. I find it interesting that we haven't seen anything from that game. I know part of it is the people making that game, who made that game, are doing other stuff right now. But there's a game that we talked about it. They spent a bunch of money making it. That game is real expensive. I recently went back and looked at a bunch of the media that went with that game, like the music and stuff. They spent a shit ton of money on that game. But there's no way they got it back because it didn't sell at all. That's the kind of game where, hey, as a portable game and on a system that's now more popular than the system it came from and more popular in Japan, certainly. I mean, the Switch just passed the GameCube in Japan. Again, the lifetime sales of the GameCube are now less than the lifetime sales of Switch in Japan. That game
which is crossed the 4 million barrier, didn't it?
Yeah, that game has a chance now, where it had no chance on Wii U in Japan, where it was massively unpopular. It sort of took the things Japanese gamers didn't want out of their home consoles and didn't want in their portables and said, let's just mix it all up. And so that's a game that now could potentially sell some copies. Do I think it's going to be a big, billion seller? No. But could they maybe get some of that money that they originally spent back? Yeah. But right now, I don't know. I don't know the fate where my Switch my Wii U finally goes away.
It'll be kind of interesting once it's all said and done in terms of we get past this phase of Wii U games, kind of for whatever reason it might be, getting ported to Switch. What is left on Wii U that is kind of particular to it, the one indispensable thing about it still.
You're right.
We don't know yet. Obviously, we don't know how many of these games will come across, and of course it's subjective to a certain degree in terms of what is really kind of the quality involved, or how well you think the Wii U's features were used or whatever. But it by the time it's over, it could be a pretty small pool to choose from, which is I personally very much like the Wii U's library as it was, but you just feel like so much of it is going to get ported over, or perhaps superseded by something on Switch, a sequel to something. But in the end, in terms of something to go back to, there might not be terribly much that's okay, well, this is still something that you can only have on Wii U, and it's really amazing, or something like that. I mean, like I said. Something that could use the specific features to some extent, but a lot of that was not as well received, or was very multiplayer centric, which is kind of less ripe for revisiting unless you've got the right crowd to do it with.
Yeah, and I think one of those games that you've mentioned is Tokyo Mirage Sessions and Star Fox, who both really got the gamepad in there.
Yeah, that's true.
And those are the features of those games that are least well liked, in broadly speaking.
Yeah, no, that's again, like I said, there's this kind of subjective kind of component to it, but yeah, I mean, Star Fox might be one of the only things that's particular to the Wii U by the end of it, because I don't see that getting ported. Whereas Toki Mirage Sessions, I could.
Yeah. The path for.
I'm sure once they get the online service hooked up and running, they'll make Super Mario Maker 2 or something.
Yeah, like I said, might not be a port, but it might be something that sort of supersedes it. So you can't.
Anything that was one of those like rare big successes on the Wii U will get something.
Yeah, like Splatoon 2 has already kind of superseded the original. I guess there might be some things that maybe people like better in the original or something, but in general,
right? Yeah, but it is probably outsold the original at this point, or if not, it will obviously.
Oh yeah, I believe it has. But yeah, it's a catalog title now, so it's just going to keep selling.
Right. It's a much bigger game than the original at this point, at its maximum extent, and it's getting something the original never did, which is DLC. Like Nintendo in Nintendo's mind, Splatoon started at Splatoon 2. I think just from the for lack of a better word, the love they put into the sequel, like how much more, even things like the characters, like how much more effort was put into drawing the base Squid characters. Like they're way more detailed. There's way more polish. And it's not just like this is what the Switch can do versus this is what the Wii U can do. It was we can spend some money here.
Yeah, it's worthwhile.
And time, I think.
Time.
Because so many things on Wii U were about trying to get it out quickly, whether it was to try and kind of give an uplift to the system's fortunes, or as it went on, kind of to try and just get it there before it became completely dead.
Right, before this became, well, I guess we should move this to Switch now.
Yeah, which, arguably, like Star Fox and Toki Mirage Sessions did not get there in time. It was kind of dead by then. And why they didn't have as much kind of a chance as they might otherwise have done. Yeah,
it's still. I'm still trying to think what would have to come. Like, what would it? Is there one game that would make me say, okay, I could, or is there one or two where I could say, okay, the Wii U can go away? And I think for me, the answer is always going to be no, because what Guillaume said, like, it's also my Wii.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And it got also, like if you want to play Wii Sports, that still happens to me sometimes, especially with my parents, with, the bowling game is very popular. So you need a Wii U to play the HD version, or you go back to the Wii and play the original. But
yeah.
That's one where I feel like once we get there, once Nintendo feels like they have officially cast off the Wii chains, where we could see it, but there's that weird branding thing that they would need to deal with. But I feel like that's money that they just can't leave on the table. That they have to do something for that crowd that's more approachable than 1-2 Switch. Which isn't to say 1-2 Switch isn't approachable. It's that 1-2 Switch makes you look like a complete tool when you play it. By design. I mean,
that is very much the point. Yeah.
Nintendo's own marketing talked about, like, this might be a game you enjoy at a party with a drink in your hand.
They've done that before with like WarioWare Smooth Moves or some of those styles or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't strictly about the function of the Wii remote, which we know was not all that nuanced. It was a lot about making you look like a prat in front of other people.
Because sometimes that's what you need. That's what you need your game to do, is to make your friends look like complete tools. And then it's your turn, and it's going to ask you to get into the big cheese form, which is fucking like that's the one thing about WarioWare Smooth Moves that I think it did really well, is that it knew what it was doing. It knew it was designed to make you look like a complete fuck, and then named it. Because once you put a name on the stupid pose it's making you do, like the elephant, it's infinitely more embarrassing as a consequence. Like, it's like, oh, okay, The big cheese is the best one, though, where it's like, okay, put your hands on your hips with the Wii remote, and now here's the picture that comes. I want to say the name came after the picture came up, and it's like, you're the big cheese. Oh, man. That's embarrassing. But yeah, there's it's almost like they have to start dealing with the Wii back catalog to get me there. Some of those WiiWare games that I like, or excuse that WiiWare game I like, the one.
So he was quite positive about Dark Lord last week.
Yeah. I'm being a little facetious here, but
no.
But you know, there's a handful of those, but those could still come. Like those could still make their way out too. Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I'm the wrong person for this. My GameCube is still hooked up. My N64 is still hooked up. My Super Famicom is still hooked up. It's kind of hard to imagine me disconnecting any Nintendo platform.
Well, and I said what I said, but at the same time, my Wii is hooked up because it's my GameCube, which is dumb.
That's true.
Yeah, true.
My Wii is my GameCube, but it's not my Wii. My Wii U is my Wii. My Wii U is also my Wii U, but really not really. I can't. Tokyo Mirage Sessions was in the Wii U for over a year. Let's put it that way. And my Switch is the only thing I play, effectively, unless I'm doing something for the show. So, yeah, it's I could probably just do it, honestly.
Yeah.
But I have $30 of WiiWare credit I bought for a dying system that I'm going to play on a different system.
But, yeah, the good news is you got a whole year to wait and see if any of this stuff does come back.
It's true.
So don't make any hasty decisions, okay?
In case,
but at the same time, stuff could be delisted before the official, end of the Wiiware. Yeah, I know.
Shit,
like it's
Guillaume.
really it's a gamble.
Life is a gamble, Guillaume.
Yep.
Like, what if I spend my money now and then something new comes out that I want?
Well, that's not going to happen. So that's definitely the one thing that's not possible. But I mean, like, don't make the mistake I made and like wait too long on what's that Factor 5 game?
Super
Turrican
2. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So
I think
got
for some
Super
reason
Turrican.
Super Turrican stuck around, but 2 got delisted.
Yeah,
Weird.
yeah. So I got the first one, and I plan to check out the second one at some point. And now there's just no way to do that ever.
It's
gone
no
forever.
No one will ever see Turrican 2 ever again.
Nope. It's like it never existed.
It's eradicated from the earth.
Yep.
From our memories.
Yep.
Turrican, there was no Turrican 2.
Yeah. What game we're talking about? I never heard of that game.
We're talking about Load Runner, I think, something like that. Yeah,
World Runner?
That just came out on Switch. So
it did. That's why it popped into my brain.
you can play a demo if you've never played Load Runner before. So
If
Load
Which
Runner.
was-
I grew up with Load Runner.
you know what the sad reality
Lived across the
is.
street from me.
What Mr. Runner lived across the street from you.
He did.
Mr.
did.
L Runner lived across the street.
Good old Load. Load's a
Good old
guy.
Lodi.
Yep.
Good old Lodi. Jesus Christ, what are we doing? Let's move on to the next email. John, would you care to read it?
Certainly, James. Ryan writes, "Hey, RFN crew. As a huge Pokemon fan myself, and with E3 only a couple of months away, it has me thinking about what Pokemon for Switch is. Personally, I would like to see a series reboot. Have the game set in Kanto with a bigger map and have access to Pokemon from all 7 generations. I want to know what you would like it to be. Would you like a brand new generation, a remake, or maybe even a reboot? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and thank you for the wonderful show, and keep up the good work."
So as Pokemaniacs, as we are well known to be on this show, Pokemon aficionados,
Mm-hmm.
we
For the
are.
record, just to put my Pokemon credentials, whatever they're worth, on the
Your
table.
Pokedentials.
I've played Pearl, Soul Silver, Moon, and Yellow through the Elite Four. So it's not nothing.
I mean,
but-
Greg,
No,
I
that's
mean,
a pretty comprehensive
It's
list.
purchased Pearl.
I know you bought Black or White because you were peer pressured into it.
It's not. It's I mean, the thing with Pokemon is there's so much more than just seeing the credits, and that's not a level to which I've got. I might get Crystal, because that was relatively recent Virtual Console release.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern to see what is going on with Switch Pokemon first. But we'll see. But yeah, so I like it clearly. But compared to the devotion and the affection that other people have for it, I will admit it's not up there. My love for the series. In terms of what I'm expecting with Switch. I've kind of a little bit hung up on some of the technical stuff in terms of bringing the series into HD on a console for the first time, seemingly kind of relatively early on in the Switches. Even with previous handhelds, they didn't necessarily show up that quickly. Pokemon games, they tended to linger longer on the previous generation of Nintendo hardware than some.
At best, they were like Gold and Silver, which showed up with the Game Boy Color as enhancement.
Yeah, that was like a kind of overlap situation there. Yeah, but in terms of GBA, in terms of DS, you were generally talking about a couple of years in, weren't you? And I guess Switch is still kind of within that time frame, but I don't. Given the jump to console and the graphical fidelity and the time frame that we may be dealing with here, I made fun of the whole 2018 or later thing, which is a pretty broad range of but presumably we
do not have a time machine, is what they're saying.
There is a kind of there's a focus. So to what I read that as is kind of certainly they'd very much like it to be in the fiscal year that's just about to begin. Right.
But if it hits the end of the fiscal year, then we are at about that 2-year point. And
yeah, so that's true. But given the fact it's not too far off in the future and you're making this jump platform-wise and power-wise, I've not very hopeful that it would be something that Ryan is talking about in terms of a reboot or something a bit more kind of sort of considerable in its revisions to the formula. I could see it being much safer than that. I mean, Pokemon's been pretty safe in general. Not that things haven't changed over the years, because they have. There were some pretty significant changes just recently with Sun and Moon. But I could see it being more of a kind of iterative installment to get the series onto this new kind of environment with Switch, and then perhaps a subsequent one could go further than that and maybe take more advantage of what the console environment is giving it.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, I guess there's really two questions here. What do you want, and then what do you expect? And the series reboot want, like, you can be Dr. Jonathan Metz here and be like, kill all Pokemon that aren't 150 and below, which is stupid, because that's how they make their money. Gotta sell them plushies. But like, I've been to the Pokemon stores in Japan. There's a lot of Pokemon who are not in the 151 that sell a shit ton of merch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether Johnny was wedded to the first generation. I think it was just more kind of, you could just cull a lot of them.
I don't know. I seem to recall his culling being pretty thorough.
He's a man of science.
Sounds like he's a man of murder.
Along with that,
I like that you just pronounce he's a man of science, but nobody's entirely sure what to deduce from that assessment.
What
does that even mean, John?
I think he's insinuating that means he can be unscrupulous because there's a higher.
Maybe a little bit cold. maybe a little bit cold.
Are you implying Pokegenics? What are you talking about here?
Survival of the fittest. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's how I got from that.
Those Pokemon gotta go. It's just Mother Nature. You know what I'm saying? It's a law of the jungle.
More like Mother Nature.
It could be, that's what you could have. The reboot could be some sort of, like, or a Pokemon Battle Royale situation where they all go on an island and, however many of them.
640 species of Pokemon drop from an island?
Yeah, everybody flies in on a Charizard.
Whichever ones don't perform well with the audience at large are written out of subsequent games.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically describing Pokemon Rollerball.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of like what I expect a conservative game out of a company that has proven more than happy to make conservative games.
Yeah, I expect something more about the engine than about necessarily the game. Like they got to get this engine made, get it out there.
My fear for them is that they go very conservative. Which, I get it. I get doing it. That they basically just make a pretty Pokemon. They don't necessarily even bother to make a pretty 3D Pokemon. That they just make a pretty Pokemon and say, well, this is Pokemon. Pokemon is 2D. What's the problem? The models are 3D. Isn't that enough for you people? Why do you need 3D world to explore? And the reality of the situation is I think they could probably get away with it.
They could.
Well, there's only so much that they can do to reimagine the formula in this amount of time. I mean,
that implies they weren't working on it for years.
Yeah, I don't think they have been working on reinventing Pokemon for years. Not the way that like the Zelda team has had time to work on Breath of the Wild.
So Pokemon
for as long as they did.
Sun and Moon came out when 2016. Yeah. So presumably it was done before that because they had to make time to make all their friggin' TV shows and stuff. But like let's say they wrapped up primary development in mid 2016. Presumably they started planning for the Switch game before that or before that wrap up.
But maybe not. Like, wasn't the Pokemon Company or someone just like surprised by the Switch being a success?
They were, but. Again, I would hope that somebody in that company wasn't a complete fucking ponce. As we should probably plan for our corporate overlords game system having Pokemon games. Because they had to know. But I guess it's possible that no planning happened and that they're going to walk into Switch totally blind. And God help them.
To me, the obvious solution would be to just because there's a few ways for them to cut corners. One of the ways would be to do like kind of a 2D game and not really touch anything, like you said. But they could also maybe
Sun and Moon already did a lot with 3D environments. They've already come across that.
Yeah,
admittedly, bringing all of those things into HD would be a lot more complex than kind of actually dialing it back to more of a 2D HD 2D or whatever the Octopath Traveler folks like to call it.
There's a difference between 3D environments and a 3D world.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. I feel like they've made some progress, though. It would be kind of hard for them to not sort of to go completely static on Switch, but at the same time, I've said before, I do think it'll be very, very much kind of an establishing kind of game, rather than something that's looking to reinvent it at this stage. Because like it's, I'm not convinced based on the previous generations of Nintendo hardware that they would have been very actively looking at Switch that early on, because it's not generally what they do. And I mean, it's going to be, we've mentioned it before, it's going to be different for them being on a platform that's so expensive. The price of entry is going to be considerably higher in relative terms than it's been in the past for them, so that'll be different. And of course, how will they kind of look at the online situation? How will they look? That's been something that has been in Pokemon games since the DS, and presumably, the online subscription service is going to be up and running before Pokemon for Switch is with us. Obviously, they already have they charge for their Pokemon Bank service, correct, for storing your Pokemon or whatever. But how they'll kind of mesh with that, how aggressively Nintendo might want to leverage it. Maybe that would be an argument for saying, yes, let's do things with it online that we haven't done before. Because we want to drive people to uptake that service, or perhaps they would kind of shy away from that and not wanting to kind of, on top of the high price of entry for the device, say, oh yeah, and you really do need to be a subscriber to actually get the most out of this game.
Like,
on top of it.
Like maybe GTS is accessible regardless, but the
trading system, yeah.
But fighting isn't, or something like that. I mean, they have room to maneuver inside their own mealy-mouthed discussions of the online platform. So
and that has been, it has, like I said, with the Mario Tennis Aces, it was like some services will require a subscription, so they're certainly leaving themselves that wiggle room at this stage.
What I want, though, we've talked about what we think. What I want to see. I'm perfectly fine if they decide to say we're going to maintain an overhead perspective. We're okay with that. Like that's what the series is. If that's what they want to be, I'm fine with that. I don't need all my games to be, first or third person over the shoulder. But if they're going to do that, I expect it to look gorgeous. And that doesn't mean necessarily that it looks hyper realistic. I would be totally fine if it looked really stylized, if it looked like a really pretty like 16-bit 2D game, but not actually 16-bit, but like that kind of art style that usually came with those. Something that's more expressive than it is realistic. But in terms of the actual Pokemon, I don't want to see two versions. Not at this price. I get that we're probably going to see something to make up for it. I know that. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's DLC, if they sell like new Pokemon via DLC or whatever. I'm okay with that, but I don't want there to be a gold and silver or red and blue at $60. That's asking a lot. Now the reality of the situation is I think they might be able to get away with it. And I have made my peace with that. But I want to see a game that looks better than anything they've done on the 3DS. I want to see the battles that look at least comparable to something like Pokemon Battle Coliseum that came out on the Wii. What was that? Pokemon Battle Revolution. Obviously HD, but I don't want to see generic Pokemon wind up and then generic Pokemon take damage on the other side. I want to see actual attacks between characters. Which I understand that means you're basically doing a Cartesian product of the 163 Pokemon or whatever that Bulbasaur can shoot Razor Leaf at. But make something work in that space, because that's where the presentation, I think, needs to really explode. Is in the art and in the one moment of really kinetic action in combat. And as long as they do that, I'm okay if the game maintains its relatively simple focus.
No, like I said, I mean, for me, having played as many of the games as I have, I wouldn't say I've completely kind of exhausted my enjoyment of that kind of formula and that structure that they've got. Again, they varied it up a bit in Sun and Moon, with these sort of challenges that they had and the totem battles and all that kind of stuff. And I like some of those wrinkles they threw in there. So changes on that kind of order would be perfectly fine with me. But having not played every single generation, or even to the point where you play the third versions, like such as Platinum or Black 2 White 2 or whatever, having not gone that far with it, I probably am not as perhaps burned out on it as maybe some people are. So yeah, I can understand that perhaps others are more eager to see a more comprehensive kind of reboot approach.
The one thing I will say that gives me some hope that maybe they'll be more willing to step away from their normal versioning strategy, which is like, I'm super at work now, I'm using phrases like that, is that they made a much bigger departure recently in their third versions. Now, they also sold you 2 games because, of course, they did.
Yeah, they went to Black 2, White 2 and Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon instead of Platinum or Emerald or whatever. Yeah.
But those games are a much more involved outcome. Like, they actually went and they said, we'll make a new-ish game, especially in the case of Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. But, you know, maybe they are realizing that, hey, we can get away with 2 versions. But what if we could it's a question of, did they learn the lesson of we can get away with 2 but not 3? Or is it they learned the lesson we can get away with 4 and not 3?
It depends on your point of view.
I don't know which answer is the one they settled on. I'm hoping it's we can't get away with 3. I'm hoping it's not, hey, we can get away with 4. But I don't know. I would like to see them make a commitment to... I don't think they'd go all the way games as a service Pokemon. But I think there's a way you can make that work. But I think their audience being what it is, that I don't know. Like, all right, John, you're a gas expert. Did we kill him?
No, I'm not dead. What expert?
Gas, games as a service.
Oh, games as a service. All right, I'm like gas. I'm like
games as a service.
I don't know. I don't.
Well,
think
John's expertise is now in question.
Yeah. I don't think they would ever do that. I mean, first off, I don't think that Nintendo's online service would ever really be robust enough to support it.
But I mean, Splatoon is already a games as a service game. ARMS is a games as a service game.
I suppose the thing about Splatoon, though, is that it began as that.
Sure.
You know, the first Splatoon was basically that. So I feel there's this sort of it was a new IP. It gave them the opportunity to experiment, and it's always been that in people's minds. So they don't have any sort of reservations about it. When it's with a pre-existing kind of formula that you're talking about tinkering with or whatever, they'd probably be far more wary of upsetting people's expectations and all that kind of thing.
But my question is, could they pull it off? Is there a route? Could you see the Pokemon franchise committed to a live game?
No, I don't think it's necessary.
Well, I don't
think people even want that from Pokemon. Could they do it?
Agree.
Yeah, I mean, you can throw anything into an open world formula or something like that.
Well, so I'm not saying open world. But I'm saying like evolving Pokedex, like over time, as opposed to putting out a new version every year. Coming up with a way to continually get content dollars out of you without having to develop and release a whole new game.
I doubt it, just because I think they make so much more money by just re-releasing it year after year.
I guess.
And it was pretty much. I mean, there was a year off, but it has generally been sort of annual for quite some time.
Yeah, I just worry the costs of building a new game are such that maybe the revenue model could be better if it was, all right, we're going to sell you a whole shitload of DLC now.
Yeah, but I mean, but that's the thing though. Like right now, what they can do is they can release a Pokemon game pretty much every year, if not every other year, and it has a story, and then it has your end game, and then you can go around and collect all your Pokemon. Well, what happens if you turn it into some sort of like game as a service? What, you go through the story, and then after that you have the end game, and then you collect all your Pokemon, and then what? They just keep releasing Pokemon, or maybe add another story. I mean, I guess you could do that, but
you add another season or whatever.
I don't know.
Sounds kind of like the model for the card game to me at this point. Like I'm just picturing Blizzard's Earth. Was it Hearthstone?
Hearthstone.
Yeah, Hearthstone. Yeah, kind of.
Anyway.
Yeah. I just think I don't know. I just think with the audience of Pokemon, I just don't think that would really. I think it's too complicated.
All right. I mean that's fine. I was just kind of thinking like, okay, could they do it? And I still think they could.
Oh yeah, they could.
I don't know if they will. I just think there's a route there that ultimately does make them more money. I just don't know the exact path to get on it.
I think, well, the thing is, I think the way they're doing it now makes them a ton of money just because they can build a game and then effectively just re-release it maybe with a new, like, that's what they do, right? But they don't have to maintain anything in that game. They effectively just reuse the engine and throw a new story campaign in there and just toss it out there, you know?
Well, they have to make a new world and stuff every time.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that it's one thing doing this game as a service could get them away from. They wouldn't necessarily have to make a new world every time they want to sell a new season. Like, oh, hey, now you're going to Kanto. It's 2 years later.
Yeah.
It's been invaded by a bunch of other Pokemon now.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, what? Like, I mean, would you think it would be a subscription? I don't think any...
No, I think it would. I think it would be they would sell you like a $20 new season.
Yeah. Or
they could just sell you the hats. Now your Pikachu has a space helmet.
Mm-hmm.
No, those are from loot boxes, please.
Right. Yeah. That's how you finance the game. Sure.
You don't get to pick your hat. We will pick your hat for you through the joys of random number generators.
I guess for me, the way I've played Pokemon games, like I generally have kind of left it at beating the Elite Four and all that. It's something, and it's kind of varied, I guess, across. And again, having not played them all, I wouldn't know in detail. But I think kind of the sort of post game stuff has kind of varied across generations. Kind of like forwards, backwards. So they've kind of dialed it back in some cases. But yeah, that's something I've kind of been missing a little bit. Is the feeling of like, okay, I've developed a team up to this point. What is the reason for me to keep using the team or develop it further or change it? Because it just hasn't quite clicked with me to that extent yet. Certainly the actual acquiring all of them is not something that I'm absolutely desperate to do a lot of the time. But when you've built a team over the course of that adventure, you've got a certain amount of kind of investment in it, and so I'd kind of like to do more with them, but a lot of the time I don't feel compelled. Like in Sun and Moon, you had the battle tree, which I kind of did a little bit of, but I couldn't really get that far, and it didn't, the rewards or whatever didn't seem that particularly interesting. So I think that would probably be the, if indeed it is going to be a fairly kind of traditional Pokemon game on Switch, at least, at first, that'd probably be what I would like to see them do the most with, is some reason to kind of give you to keep playing with the team you've built up to get to the end. But I get, because the thing is, if you've got friends, I guess, that you're going to play against regularly, or you want to get into like the competitive scene or whatever, then you've got plenty of reason to go all the way down the breeding and training kind of rabbit hole. But something that for somewhat more casual players to keep going would be nice.
I say let's completely reinvent it. You go around a mostly empty open world. You can't collect them all. You've got limited inventory, and your Pokemon break after a number of uses.
That's not entirely unrealistic, I guess.
That's my vision.
Pokemon permadeath. Yeah,
and you can climb on everything you can see. You see that mountain there? You can climb it.
You can walk to it and then climb it.
Yes.
You can walk straight up to Rayquaza if you feel like it and just get destroyed.
Yes.
And are they all voice acted too? In your all the Pokemon voice acted?
All with the Detective Pikachu voice.
Are we still gonna get like fucking microchips having sex noises for a lot of Pokemons, or is it gonna actually be real like noises now?
it's just preserving the continuity. It's very serious.
Yeah.
Why does Pikachu sound like an ATM is having some kind of midlife crisis? Don't worry about it.
I think you're ignoring the more serious possibility that in the future there will be Detective Pikachu, the movie, the game, where it's just digitized versions of the live action cast and Ryan Reynolds' voice instead of the guy that's in the 3DS game.
Oh boy, I just Now I'm thinking about that and wondering like where did video games go wrong?
With Street Fighter,
So
the movie,
many
the
places.
game, because that's
No, that's too late. I think you've picked a starting point that's too late.
Oh, come on. There's nothing that encapsulates the bankruptcy of the 90s more than Street Fighter, the movie, the game.
Raul Julia's last role, rest in peace. I don't know. Have you seen Double Dragon, the movie, the game? That one's forgotten, but there is a game based on the Double Dragon movie. It's horrible garbage.
Has it got digitized Van Damme?
It doesn't.
Yeah, well,
Because there's no actors in that movie that are worth digitizing.
but it's just the beauty of it, because the whole Mortal Kombat started off as the notion was they were going to get Van Damme and use that digitized process on him, and then he ends up in the Street Fighter movie, and they make a Mortal Kombat style game based on that. It's just the kind of snake eating its own tail.
Yeah, it's the Ouroboros of video games in the 90s.
Snake eating its fucking nonsense pretzel of the 90s is, you can't beat that.
I just going for what's pure garbage in this case, and to me, someone's saying we could make a Double Dragon movie, and you look around, you go, the fuck, really? And then there's
you don't have to make one. You really
like
don't have to.
Nobody's put a gun to your head.
Yeah, no one's really been asking for one.
Why do we need a movie about Billy and Jimmy? I don't want this. Nobody wants
Billy
this.
movie. It has to be made, guys.
It's I woke up one day and I said, has there been a movie starring a Bobo? And they said no, and I said, well, fucking change it.
This has to change. Bobo needs his time in the sun.
This is what we need. And so that is going to do it for RFN this week. You can send us your Abobo fanfiction to rfn at nintendoworldreport.com. In fact, I insist on it.
Oh, God. There's someone who might actually write that.
You know what? Good. Fucking go for it. I'm not promising we're going to read it, but like...
Just FYI, there is a fanfiction archive for Double Dragon, so there you go.
Do you have
Abobo's
bookmarked?
Revenge.
You seem to know this pretty quick.
Google's an amazing thing. Abobo's Revenge. There's a little fan fiction for you. Just please.
What are the
the
tags on it? I need to know.
I'm more of a wrath of a Bobo man myself.
Just please continue.
Please.
All right. Well, again, you can send us your emails to rfn at nintendoworldreport.com. Greg.
Yes.
Do we have some music for this week?
We do. So we have a new Punch-Out release. Not something you get to celebrate very often. The Arcade Archives Punch-Out.
We were just talking about last week. But is that going to come out?
Yeah, as we speak, I think it's up on the Japanese store. It's not up on Europe store yet, but it's scheduled for today as we record. So I'm sure it'll be with everyone by the time they hear this. But I wanted to commemorate it in music form, and Punch-Out for Wii, which is just about to turn 10 years old.
Oh my God.
Isn't it? Or was that 2009? I forget. But it's ridiculously old in either case. Yeah, that's right. It was 2009, so it was 9 years old.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes it so much better.
It's okay, but don't go crazy. Yeah, so it's about to turn 9 years old, and great soundtrack by the guys at Next Level. Taking the NES sort of tunes and jazzing them up. And this particular piece is from the title defense mode, the major circuit in that mode, which I absolutely adored. I love the title defense. There's crazy spins they put on it, and how challenging it was, and just goes full wailing guitar 80s perfect nostalgia, kind of play that they were going for that 9-year-old game. So I hope everyone enjoys it.
Our nostalgia for our nostalgia game. All right. Well, bye everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.